Hello, my name is Tyeshia Davidson, and I did my presentation on child abuse and neglect in rural settings. What is rural and urban? Rural is an open country in settlements with fewer than 2,500 residents. The population density is very low. Urban areas comprise larger places and densely settled areas around them. Homes and business are located very close to one another. This slide is just showing a picture of comparing what is an urban area and what is rural area. Like I said before, the social issue that I chose is child abuse and neglect in rural settings. Social issue. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration, rural children are more likely to live in poor families and are more vulnerable to death from injuries. Children who live in small communities may be well acquainted with the healthcare providers and law enforcement officers. For that reason, people may be scared to report child abuse, fearing that there will be fearing that their concerns will not be taken seriously, and that whatever they tell them will not be confidential. How does this social issue relate to rural settings? Child abuse and neglect is related to rural areas because in rural communities, child abuse and neglect is often underreported due to isolation and geographic remoteness, lack of social services or other support programs, lack of or limited foster care or emergency housing, social stigma for children who have been neglected and abused. Child abuse and neglect are usually not reported in rural areas because of geographic isolation. Children in rural areas whose caregivers are either experiencing active domestic violence or have cognitive impairments are more likely to have a case substantiated than similar urban children. The theory framework that I chose is ecological perspective, which gives a insight on the factors that put children at risk for violence or protect them from experiencing or perpetrating abuse. This theory helps me understand the relationship between children and young people, their family and community, and how these relationships and social context influence the safety and risk of children who have been neglected and abused. Some programs and policies I found, or one of them are the American Professional Society on the Abuse of Children. It is a non-profit national organization focused on meeting the needs of professionals engaged in all aspects of services for maltreated children and their families. Hope for Children Foundation help children in need and preventing cruelty to children, including providing education to the general public and to professionals who are charged with protecting children and adults against sexual assault and domestic violence. This slide right here continues the programs and policy. Stop Child Abuse and Neglect is a social-based program designed to provide child abuse prevention and safely information to school children. Staff members and trained volunteers teach youth about personal safety, including inappropriate touching, internet safety, and bullying. Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act state grants provide funds to states to improve their child protective service systems to prevent child abuse and neglect. The next slide are peer reviewed articles that I chose. The first article is called Families in Crisis: The Relationship Between Opioid Overdose and Child Maltreatment in Neighborhood Areas. This article goes into details about parents using drugs and how it leads to child abuse and neglect at home, in homes. The next article is called Rural Urban Disparities and Child Abuse Management Resources in the Emergency Department. It goes in details about the limited healthcare resources in rural areas. And the last article is called The Family Checkup: Ecological Family-Based Assessments in the Context of Potential Child Abuse or Chaotic Home Environments. It basically goes in details about the family checkup, about what the assessments are, and how the assessments help children that have been neglected and abused. And my last slide is my reference. Thank you.